STAR, Saving Tomorrow's Agricultural Resources, is a program to help farmers meet the conservation implementation goals in the Illinois Nutrient Loss Reduction Strategy. Designed as a simple, straightforward, and easy-to-use tool, STAR is an implementation framework. It was soon adopted and expanded into other Midwestern and Western states to meet their watershed nutrient load reduction needs. STAR advises farmers to implement sustainable and profitable land management practices with a phased-in approach. The two most important practices are minimum, if any, tillage in the fall, reducing phosphate runoff, and growing a cover crop over winter, reducing nitrate runoff. The STAR program scores each field across 30 factors, resulting in a grade between 1 and 5 stars. A 5-star field represents the best practices associated with regenerative farming. Since its inception in 2017, I wanted to check on how STAR was doing.
I could say we got thousands of people involved in using it, but we don't. We had about 400 farmers in Illinois use it several years ago and about the same last year. So it's not growing, as I kind of implied earlier, like I think it should.
The program is free to use. It leads to better soil management and lower input costs. So why are farmers not using it?
We like predictability in farming, don't we? We like to say, and we know how much nitrogen it takes for the most part to grow a crop, phosphorus, potassium. When we start dealing with cover crops, now we're dealing in probabilities instead of certainties. A cover crop may do a better job of sequestering. It may actually cost you in the process. It may cost you yield because of this chaotic system that you were talking about here. So it goes from certainty to probability, and that gets a lot more complicated.
He only had one field in the program for several years, and I talked to him last year, and he said, I don't see any great benefit to me. And again, he's not a active farmer. It's not his full-time job. He was really a landowner, but saw the ideas of STAR being good, but recognized after I think he'd used it for 3 years and got his STAR ratings that were pretty good, it just said, I'm not really getting anything out of this. In my opinion, too many producers are only looking at the short term. They're not looking at the long term. The landowner has to look at the long term. And so I think we're moving more quickly to find ways to get to owners and let them have some influence on them. So Seymour Milling out of Theotopolis, Illinois, a couple of years ago became aware of the program, and they are now offering an incentive for people, their customers, people who are producing wheat to sell to them. So if you go from a 1-star to a 2-star, you get $5 an acre, 2-star to 3-star, and so on. We still think that might have a real good place, but again, it takes funding. A lot of people recognize cover crops really have an advantage to, again, ultimately reduce the nutrient losses as well as other things. And yet only 6 or 7% of Illinois acreage has been using cover crops. And that's with a number of financial incentives by the government, typically, to do that. So why aren't they changing? Well, part of it's the traditional stuff. Part of it's a lack of understanding. To me, that's why I'm involved, as you know, as an educator from my career. It's disappointing that we don't have more farmer producers really understanding what seems to be pretty easy to understand if you just look at the data with an open mind.
Without the farmers changing, there's been very little reduction in nutrient loss. The latest published results from the Nutrient Loss Reduction Study for Illinois showed that nitrates were 20% above the 2025 goal and phosphorus 60% above the 2025 goal. A report from the group on September 26 indicates things are not improving, and most likely they will not achieve their 2025 goal. Are these really the barriers that are stopping farmers from securing their future and preserving our environment? I believe it's actually something more fundamental than this. Since 2006, the corn-soybean rotation has come to dominate Midwest farming. Cheap corn is needed to compete against oil, requiring yields to increase, leading to a massive addition of chemicals and fertilizers, of which a significant percentage ends up in the Mississippi River. Over 90 million acres of corn are planted each year, including this year, when advisory services were forecasting a $2 per bushel loss for corn because of overproduction. Overproduction is driving prices to record lows. But farmers raced into their fields this spring to plant corn fence row to fence row. Why? To me, this indicates the farmers really don't have a choice. They've been trapped into Big Ag's manipulation. The corn-soybean rotation has been bioengineered to produce, nearly independent of weather and pest variations. Agribusiness feeds off the farmer, who is obliged to purchase new seeds and chemicals each year to produce a record yield, paradoxically driving commodity prices low for the processors. Corn farmers are squeezed between the bioengineering seed companies like Bayer, Corteva, and Syngenta, and the giant commodity processors such as Cargill and ADM. The state of agriculture in the Midwest is akin to a runaway train, with Big Ag seed companies at the helm and the giant processors gleefully amassing profits from the overproduction. It's difficult to discern if the farmers are even on the train. The future seems bleak, with the possibility of the land being owned by billionaires and rural residents reduced to mere indentured servants. I like the STAR program. It's a great idea, but expecting it to revolutionize farming practices is a fading hope. The challenges identified could be addressed, and most are not that significant for farmers. However, the fundamental barrier of the Big Ag profit machine is not going to be overcome with an environmental and grassroots program. It's only when the demand for corn, and consequently ethanol, decreases that we can see any change to improve our water and soil. There's little incentive for Big Ag in lower yields, cleaner water, and healthier foods.
I know the sound of all the shadows